long story short, part 3. So what I'm gonna do with this, John, is I'm gonna bring my first 2 episodes or 2 parts where I talked about your God-given gifts and being able to acknowledge them earlier on in life, and just the level of confidence that comes along with those things. I'm a translate it into some of my own experiences, right? So you may have heard me talk about my experience in corporate America, and I just wanted to share that with you and how certain things came about with me for that. I mean, in that world, and how it's relative to what I said in my first 2 videos, right? So just to start to say, I always had a job from the age of 16. That was the legal age of working. Since I was 16, I had a job. I didn't do the best job at keeping them, maintaining them, but I always knew that if you want to have money in your pocket, that's what it was. I mean, I had another idea too, but the honest way was to go out there and get a job, and then that's how you make money. That's how I was raised. That's how I learned, right? So my point is that I always, when I hit a certain age, and as I begin to get older, maybe like in like my early 20s, I begin to understand the concept of maintaining a job, maintaining employment, working hard, being a decent guy, just whatever it basically took to be able to maintain your position in that world. I began to develop it in maybe my early 20s. So I want to talk about my first opportunity to become a manager. Like whenever I tell this story, you know, I don't think that the people that I share the story with understand the full content of it, right? Because it's such a like weird way of coming about that, you know, okay, you say that's what happened. You will probably have to really had experienced it in order to appreciate it, right? But nonetheless, I'm fresh. I'm probably like a year removed from jail. Mind you, no college. I got a GED. So at this point, I'm just trying to provide for my children. So once I obtained a job at the time, Family Dollar, you know, they just pretty much presented me with an opportunity to always have money in my pocket. So through that, you know, I made sure I did those things that I said I learned in my earlier 20s. At this point, I'm about in my mid 20s. But I put in motion a lot of those things that I talk about as far as being able to maintain that position. And what it ended up doing for me was it ended up putting me in a position that I had no plan on being in. So just for example, I'll share the story with you. So I was a part of this team called the field specialist team. We went around to all the different Family Dollars, and we were basically like extra hands, extra help. And you know, before me, when I had came on the team, it was a few people that were before me who had, since I had become a part of the team, went on to be managers, right? Even in me seeing that happen with the people that were before me, I didn't see that for myself. I'm like, look, I could just make good money doing the field specialist thing and I'll be all right. You follow me? And nonetheless, I think that my point is that once the people that were before me moved on, it catapulted me into, again, what I talked about in part 1, leadership, a role of leadership. You know, I didn't ask for it. It was just what came about and what had been placed upon me based off of my skills and my characteristics, right? So nonetheless, just being a field specialist, helping out at this specific store, and literally, I'm just telling you, literally, I was making, for real, I was making like $8.25. I wasn't making a lot of money at all. But because of how my life was set up and the economy is like, okay, well, if I manage my money correctly, I could always have money. You know, that was my mentality then, right? But nonetheless, at the end of this particular shift, I'm leaving out a part, so I want to share it. So this is important. This might be a little longer than what the other 2 have been, but that's fine. So as part member of the field specialist team, I remember when we were trying to get raises, and the raise might have only been like 50 cents, but you know, I needed that, right? So my 2 co-workers at the time, 2 girls, I never forget them, DeAndre and Julie, you know, they had gotten their raises, and, you know, my supervisor, his boss, didn't want to give me a raise because I had missed something like, you know, the price tags. I had missed the sticker somewhere. As much hard work as I had did up until that point, they minimized my right to get a raise to a small mistake that I had made. So you know, I ain't gonna lie, like I didn't show it in there, but you know, when I went home, I expressed that like I didn't like that because I worked so hard. And for you to minimize my hard work to such a small mistake, I feel like it's unfair. You follow me? Quan played a part in this too. Shout out to my co-host Quan. Quan had since then became a part of the field specialist team. So again, I'm still the leader of the field specialist team. And I shared this on the podcast too. I say, you know, I didn't know that they were giving me a second opportunity to redeem myself, but that was my attitude. You know, I had this chip on my shoulder, like they got me chopped. Like now I'm gonna go in here, right? Y'all gonna be sorry that y'all ain't give me my 50 cent, right? So, this day in particular that I said we had to go help out at this other store, I had to basically supervise Quan. And Quan, that was my man, so it didn't involve me like degrading him. It was just helping him out along the way. If I'm 25 at the time, Quan is probably 20. You follow me? So he a little younger at the time, right? And all I did was just help. You know, Quan was good at what he did too, so he didn't need much guidance. But I understood the guys that I was under as far as like, you know, they probably looking at me like I don't do the job correctly, so I'm gonna make sure I do it to a T. And I'm gonna use Quan as my man and my younger. That's like my young boy. That's like my little brother. You feel me? I'm gonna use him to help me carry out my mission. Nonetheless, at the end of the shift, I get pulled into the office by my boss's boss at the time, right? And I never forget him. His name was Frank. And Frank says, you know, I really appreciate everything you've been doing, Ed. You know, I noticed all your hard work. You know, and for me, that would have been good enough. If he would have said that and then gave me 50 cents, I would have been like, facts, let me go. You follow me? So, but ironically, you know, he literally offered me a position as store manager. Now, mind you, I was making $8.50 an hour. I wasn't even an assistant manager or a supervisor. I was like an associate. At the end of the shift, he literally said, listen, we need some help in a few areas, and I think you'd be the perfect person for it. So we talking about taking my weekly pay, because we would get paid weekly. We talking about taking my weekly pay from maybe $8.50, which might have accumulated to maybe $200 every week. You follow me? To maybe $600-700 a week. You follow me? At 26 years old, you know, and it was because of my hard work. And since then, that was my first experience, my first opportunity in corporate America in management, right? And I didn't have I had the basic skills, but I didn't have the experience. And we talking about 10 years later, you know, since then, all my positions have been management. Even if I started at my previous job at Home Depot, I started entry level there. You know, I had previously worked at Pizza Hut. I was an assistant manager there. You follow me? So by the time I got to Home Depot, you know, it's a larger scale of a job. So even me not having a title, the pay was there. The pay had matched what I had made more than what I was making at my previous job at Pizza Hut. So, but what I was also able to do was I was able to work my way up. Now, at this point, now I have an understanding of how this thing go. Like, you could work entry level and you could work your way up. All you gotta do is just present yourself in a certain kind of way. And ultimately, that's what ended up happening to me. You know, my point in all of that is to say that at that particular point of my life, I didn't have it in my mind, or it wasn't part of my mission to become a manager. You know, I had the basic skills. It was things that were already in me, things that I already knew how to do, things that God had placed in me. Maybe my mother, you know, my family who had raised me. It's things I learned from them that made me qualified to be put in that position. And my point to you is that I didn't know it. You know, it wasn't until I found myself in a position that I said, oh, I could be a manager. You know, I had to learn that for myself to say, yo, I could be a manager. I could be a leader. You know what I'm saying? And my point is, had I had that mentality going into it, I probably would have accomplished a lot more up until that point. But that also serves my point as far as us being leaders of the youth, that we help the youth to identify those things in themselves and themselves, right? So that they don't waste a large portion of their time and their lives not believing in themselves and knowing who they are. It's very important. So, you know, that leads to, you know, I'll probably say this for the next section. You know, I'll talk about the podcast and how ultimately my experiences in corporate America ultimately led me into starting the podcast, and even how I go about it and how I'm trying to build the network and everything, right? But none of this stuff was drawn out for me. These are all things that I stumbled across in my journey of life. You know, as much success as that I did obtain ultimately in corporate America, you know, I found myself at a place where it wasn't enough. That remember I talked about getting slighted on 50 cents. I feel like I began to get slighted on what I was truly worth. And the only way to really get what you worth is to go out and get it yourself. You know, they only gonna allow you but so much. But if you don't know that, $30 an hour ain't enough. I'm telling you, I got 7 kids. You follow me? So $30 might be good for the regular everyday person, but I need more than that. I need for my pay not to be confined to a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. You know, maybe daily. And when we talking monthly, that pay need to be 10 times what I saw in corporate America. You follow me? But nonetheless, long story short, you know, if you do your research, again, I know I said this in part 1, if you dig deeper in yourself, you can find your purpose. It's there. You know, you just have to, again, you have to acknowledge it, take heed to it, and then begin to put it into play for your life. So, you know, my experiences in corporate America were direct reflections of who I am today. It's just that it took for my experiences in corporate America for me to fully understand it. We talking about running a business, counting their money up, hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time, and I ain't seen that in a year. That type talk. We know that $50 million store I ran, I had the keys to the safe and all that type stuff. They make $50 million a year. I ain't even making $100,000 a year. Like something is off. Shout out to Keith and Maine. They got the don't add up. Some ain't adding up. You follow me? So long story short, know your worth. Know what your capabilities are, and put a price on it. Double it. Add text. And I'll see y'all next time.